Get lost, old man. The teenager grabbed the elderly biker's drink and dumped it directly onto his lap. Cold soda soaked through worn jeans. Ice cubes scattered across the floor. Laughter erupted from the three teens hovering around the corner booth. Sarah Mitchell, the waitress who'd been watching from across the diner, clenched her fists so hard her nails dug into her palms. She'd seen enough. The small-town diner, Rosie's, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, had been buzzing with the usual lunch crowd. Families, truckers, regulars. But in the back corner, something ugly was unfolding. An elderly man with a worn leather jacket and a long gray beard sat alone, quietly trying to finish his meal. His name was Marcus Old Iron Brennan, though most people just called him Marcus. He was 72 years old, a Vietnam veteran, and a regular at Rosie's for the past 15 years. Three teenagers, Tyler Jenkins in a backward baseball cap, his friend Derek with the smirking face, and Kayla with bright purple hair, had decided to make Marcus their entertainment for the afternoon. Sarah had worked at Rosie's diner for just over a year. She knew the regulars by name, knew their orders, knew their stories. Marcus was one of them. He came in every Tuesday and Thursday without fail, always polite, always tipped 20%, even though his clothes were worn and his boots had holes in the soles. But today, these three kids had decided he was an easy target. Sarah had watched it escalate. First, it was just whispers and giggles. Then Tyler snatched a fry from Marcus's plate. Derek grabbed his napkin. Kayla pulled out her phone and started recording. "Say something for the camera, Grandpa," Kayla mocked, shoving the phone closer to Marcus's face. Marcus had just lowered his head, jaw clenched, hands resting flat on the table. He'd probably been through worse in his 72 years. He wasn't going to give them the reaction they wanted. But when Tyler grabbed Marcus's drink and poured it onto his lap, laughing as the old man flinched from the cold, something inside Sarah snapped. She marched across the diner, her footsteps sharp against the tile floor. "Hey!" Her voice cut through the laughter like a whip. "That's enough." The three teens froze. Tyler smirked. "Relax, lady. We're just having fun." "Fun?" Sarah's eyes blazed. "You call harassing a customer fun? You call dumping a drink on an old man fun?" Derek snickered. "What are you going to do about it?" Sarah stepped closer, her voice deadly calm. "I'm going to give you exactly 5 seconds to apologize to him and leave. If you don't, I'm calling the police, and your parents, and I'm making sure everyone in this town sees that video you're recording." Kayla's smirk faltered. She lowered her phone slightly. "You can't," Tyler started. "Watch me," Sarah interrupted. "Your dad works at the hardware store, doesn't he, Tyler? Wonder how he'd feel about this. And Derek, your mom's the PTA president at the high school. I'm sure she'd love to see how her son treats elderly veterans." Tyler's face went red. Derek shifted uncomfortably. "Whatever," Tyler muttered. "This place sucks anyway." But as they turned to leave, Tyler grabbed the ketchup bottle from the table and squeezed it across Marcus's plate, ruining what was left of his meal. The three teenagers burst into laughter and walked out the door. Sarah grabbed a clean towel from behind the counter and hurried over to Marcus. "I'm so sorry about that, sir. Let me get you a fresh meal. On the house." Marcus gave her a tired smile. "That's kind of you, miss. But it's not your fault. Some kids just don't have respect these days. They shouldn't have treated you like that," Sarah said, her voice shaking with anger. "Are you okay?" Marcus patted her arm gently. "I've been through worse, believe me. But you've got guts standing up for an old biker like me. Not many people would do that." Before Sarah could respond, a sharp voice called from the back of the diner. "Sarah, my office, now." Her stomach dropped. Vincent Reynolds, the diner manager, stood in the doorway, arms crossed, an unreadable expression on his face. Sarah gave Marcus an apologetic look and followed Vincent to the small office in the back. Vincent shut the door and turned to her, his face hard. "What the hell were you thinking?" Sarah frowned. "I was protecting a customer." "You were threatening customers," Vincent snapped. "Those kids' parents come here every week. Tyler's dad drops $100 here every Saturday. We can't afford to lose business over something like this." Sarah's chest tightened. "So you're saying I should have just let them bully him?" Vincent rubbed his temples. "I'm saying you should have let me handle it." "But you didn't handle it," Sarah's voice rose. "You just stood there behind the counter and watched." Vincent's face hardened. "That's enough. Hand over your apron. You're done here." Sarah's breath caught. "Wait, you're firing me?" "Effective immediately." "You're firing me for standing up to bullies?" Sarah stared at him in disbelief. "For protecting a 72-year-old man from being harassed?" "I'm firing you for threatening paying customers and causing a scene," Vincent said coldly. "Now give me your apron and leave." Sarah's hands shook as she untied her apron and placed it on his desk. She'd worked hard at this job, covered shifts, showed up early, treated every customer with respect. And now, for doing the right thing, she was being thrown out. Without another word, she turned and walked out of the office, her eyes burning. Marcus was still sitting in the booth, watching her with concerned eyes. "What happened?" Sarah forced a small smile even as tears threatened to spill. "I just got fired." Marcus's jaw tightened. "That's not right." "It's okay," Sarah said, though her voice cracked. "I'll figure something out." She walked out of the diner into the cold afternoon air, feeling the weight of humiliation and anger crushing down on her. What Sarah didn't know was that in less than 3 hours, her life was about to change forever. Sarah sat in her car in the parking lot, gripping the steering wheel so hard her knuckles went white. Her heart was racing. Fired, just like that, for doing the right thing. The unfairness of it burned inside her chest like acid. She wiped her eyes and tried to take a deep breath. She needed to figure out what to do next. Rent was due in 5 days. Her student loans were piling up. She couldn't afford to be jobless. Her phone buzzed. A text from her roommate, Jenna. "Hey, coming home soon? Want to order pizza?" Sarah stared at the message. How was she supposed to tell Jenna she'd just lost her job? Before she could reply, there was a knock on her car window. She jumped and turned to see Marcus standing outside, his weathered face more serious than before. She rolled down the window. "Oh, hi. You okay, kid?" Marcus asked gently. Sarah shrugged. "Not really, but I'll survive." Marcus nodded slowly. "I didn't mean to cause you trouble. What you did in there, standing up for me, that took courage. Most people would have looked the other way." "It was just the right thing to do," Sarah said. Marcus studied her for a moment. Then, without saying anything, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a card. He handed it to her. "If you ever need anything, call this number," he said. Sarah looked down at the card. It was plain white with just a phone number printed in bold black ink. No name, no business, just a number. She frowned. "What is this?" Marcus smiled slightly. "Let's call it a lifeline. You never know when you might need one." Before she could ask more, he patted the car door and walked off. his heavy boots echoing against the pavement. Sarah watched him go, then glanced at the card again. She shook her head and tossed it onto the passenger seat. Right now, she needed to focus on finding another job. She drove home, her mind racing with worry. How was she supposed to explain this to her landlord? To her mom, who already worried about her constantly? Maybe she could pick up shifts at the grocery store. Maybe she could. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sound in the distance. Motorcycles, multiple engines roaring. She glanced in her rearview mirror, and her stomach dropped. A group of motorcycles, at least 15, maybe 20, was riding down Main Street, their headlights cutting through the late afternoon light, their engines rumbling like distant thunder. And they were all headed toward Rosie's diner. Sarah pulled into her apartment complex and got out of her car, still staring toward the sound. Even from here, she could hear the deep growl of their bikes. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You stood up for one of ours. Now we stand up for you." Sarah's heart pounded. "Who is this?" Another text came through. "Check the news. Your boss is about to have a very bad day." What? Sarah quickly opened her phone and searched for Rosie's diner. Her breath caught. Someone had posted the video Kayla had recorded, the one where the teens were harassing Marcus, but they'd edited it to include what happened after. Sarah defending him, getting fired, the whole thing. The video was spreading fast. Comments were pouring in. "This waitress is a hero. Fire the manager, not her. Those kids should be ashamed." And then she saw it, a live stream from someone at the diner. The parking lot was packed with motorcycles. Bikers in leather jackets stood in groups, talking to each other, their arms crossed. Some were on their phones. Others were just standing there, a wall of silent solidarity. And they weren't leaving. Before this story continues, I want to ask you something. Would you have stood up for Marcus like Sarah did? Would you risk your job to do what's right? Hit that like button if you believe in standing up for people who can't defend themselves, and subscribe to Iron Brotherhood Stories for more real tales of courage and justice. Now let's see what happened next. Sarah's phone rang. Unknown number again. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello? Sarah Mitchell?" The voice was deep, gravelly, authoritative. "Yes. Who is this?" "My name's Cole Bear Harrison. I'm the president of the Iron Legacy Motorcycle Club. You stood up for one of our brothers today. Marcus called me right after you got fired." Sarah's mouth went dry. I just did what anyone should have done." "That's where you're wrong," Bear said. "Most people don't do anything. They look away. They stay quiet. You didn't. And now we've got your back." "I don't understand. What's happening?" "What's happening," Bear said calmly, "is that your former boss is learning a very important lesson about respect." The call ended. Sarah stood frozen, staring at her phone. She pulled up the live stream again. More bikers had arrived. The parking lot was completely full now. 20, maybe 25 motorcycles lined the street. Bikers stood shoulder to shoulder, forming a perimeter around the diner, and Vincent Reynolds stood in the doorway, looking pale and terrified. Sarah grabbed her keys. She had to see this for herself. When Sarah pulled up near the diner, her breath caught in her throat. The scene was surreal. Rows of motorcycles gleamed under the streetlights. Bikers in leather vests stood in groups, their presence commanding and unmistakable. Some had their arms crossed. Others leaned against their bikes, but they all looked serious. Sarah parked a block away and walked toward the diner, her heart hammering. As she approached, heads turned, Conversations hushed, and then someone started clapping, then another and another. Within seconds, the entire crowd was applauding, whistling, calling her name. "That's her! The waitress! Sarah!" Sarah felt her face flush. She'd never experienced anything like this. She spotted Marcus standing near the front of the crowd, smiling. She approached him, still dazed. "Marcus, what's happening?" He chuckled. "What's happening is justice, kid. You stood up for me. Now they're standing up for you." Before Sarah could respond, a massive man with a thick beard and a leather vest covered in patches stepped forward. His presence alone was intimidating, but there was kindness in his eyes. "This her?" the man asked Marcus. Marcus nodded. "Yep, this is Sarah." The man extended a hand. "Name's Cole Harrison. Everyone calls me Bear. I'm the president of Iron Legacy MC." Sarah shook his hand, overwhelmed. "Nice to meet you." Bear's face was serious. "You got guts, kid. Not many people would have done what you did today, especially knowing it could cost them their job." Sarah glanced around at the sea of bikers. "I didn't expect all of this." Bear's expression darkened. "Well, your boss made a mistake. He thought firing you would make this go away. Instead, he just pissed off about 100 bikers across 3 states." Before Sarah could respond, the diner door swung open. Vincent Reynolds stepped outside, his face pale, his hands shaking slightly. He looked at the wall of bikers, then at Sarah. Bear's voice boomed across the parking lot. "Is this the guy who fired you?" Sarah swallowed hard. "Yes." The crowd murmured angrily. Vincent held up his hands defensively. "Look, I didn't mean... This is all just a misunderstanding." Bear stepped forward, and Vincent actually took a step back. "No misunderstanding," Bear said, his voice deadly calm. "You fired her for protecting one of our brothers. You let those punk kids harass a 72-year-old Vietnam veteran because their parents spend money here. That about right?" Vincent's mouth opened and closed. No words came out. Bear gestured to the bikers behind him. "Well, guess what? We've got money too, and we're making sure nobody eats at this diner again until you make this right." Vincent's eyes widened in panic. "Wait, please, I can fix this." "Then fix it," Marcus said quietly, stepping beside Bear. Vincent turned to Sarah, desperation in his eyes. "Sarah, please, if I give you your job back, will you tell them to leave?" Sarah stared at him, at the man who'd fired her without hesitation, who'd chosen money over doing what was right. She lifted her chin. "No." Vincent's face fell. "What?" "I don't want your job," Sarah said firmly, "but I do want something else." "Anything," Vincent said quickly. "I want you to apologize to Marcus, publicly, right here, right now." The parking lot went silent. Vincent looked at Marcus, then at the wall of bikers watching him. He swallowed hard. I'm sorry," he said to Marcus, "for what happened today. It was wrong. You deserved better." Marcus nodded slowly. "Apology accepted." Sarah wasn't done. "And you're going to ban those 3 teenagers from ever coming back here?" "Yes," Vincent said immediately. "Absolutely. They're banned. For life." Bear smirked. "Good choice." Sarah turned to Marcus. "Ready to go?" He smiled. "Yeah, kid. Let's get out of here." As they walked away, the bikers cheered and clapped. Sarah felt tears in her eyes, not from sadness, but from something she'd never felt before. Solidarity, community, belonging. Her life had just changed forever. Sarah stood with Marcus and Bear outside the diner, the sound of rumbling engines filling the night air. The confrontation was over, but something inside her had shifted permanently. "What happens now?" Sarah asked. Bear smiled. "Now, you move forward. You stood up for what's right, and the world noticed. That takes character." Marcus patted her shoulder. "You're not alone anymore, kid. You've got family now." "Family?" Sarah repeated. "The Brotherhood," Bear said. "We take care of our own, and anyone who stands with us is one of ours." Sarah felt emotion welling up in her chest. She'd walked into work that morning expecting just another ordinary shift. Now she was jobless, standing in a parking lot full of bikers, and somehow feeling more supported than she'd felt in years. "So what do I do about work?" Sarah asked. "I still need to pay rent." Bear pulled out a business card and handed it to her. "Come by my garage tomorrow morning. Harrison's Custom Bikes. We always need good people. People with spine. People who don't back down when things get tough." Sarah looked at the card, then at Bear. "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you an opportunity," Bear said. "Better pay than the diner. Better people, too. And nobody's going to fire you for doing the right thing." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll show up at 8 a.m., Bear said with a grin. "I'll be there," Sarah said, her voice firm. Marcus smiled proudly. "That's my girl." Over the next few days, Sarah's story spread through the town. Not because of viral videos or celebrity shares, but through word of mouth. People talked about the waitress who'd stood up to bullies, about the bikers who'd stood up for her, about Vincent Reynolds, whose diner saw a 40% drop in business. Sarah started working at Harrison's Custom Bikes. The pay was better. The people respected her. And every Tuesday and Thursday, Marcus came by for lunch, which Sarah would cook in the small break room, much to everyone's delight. 3 weeks after the incident, Tyler, Derek, and Kayla came into the garage with their parents. Sarah was at the front desk when they walked in. Her stomach tightened, but she stood her ground. Tyler's father looked embarrassed. "Miss Mitchell, we came to apologize. Our son told us what really happened that day. What he and his friends did to that man was inexcusable." Tyler stared at the floor, his face red. "We've grounded him for 2 months," his mother added. "No phone, no car, no friends, and he's written an apology letter to Mr. Brennan." Tyler stepped forward and held out a folded piece of paper. "I'm sorry," he mumbled. "What I did was wrong." Sarah took the letter and looked at the 3 teenagers. They looked genuinely ashamed. "I appreciate the apology," Sarah said, "and I hope you learned something from this." "We did," Kayla said quietly. "We're really sorry." After they left, Bear walked up beside Sarah. "How do you feel?" "Honestly," Sarah smiled, "I feel good, like maybe people can change." "Some can," Bear said, "when they're given the right push." That evening, Sarah sat on her apartment balcony with Jenna, watching the sunset. "So let me get this straight," Jenna said, sipping her coffee. "You got fired, got adopted by a biker gang, got a better job, and got a personal apology from the kids who started all this." Sarah laughed. "That's pretty much it. Your life is insane." "Yeah," Sarah agreed. "But it's mine." Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Dinner at my place Thursday? Want you to meet my wife? She makes the best apple pie in 3 states." Sarah smiled and texted back, "I'll be there." She thought about everything that had happened, about standing up when it would have been easier to stay silent, about losing a job but gaining a family, about how one moment of courage had changed everything. Sometimes doing the right thing costs you something, but sometimes it gives you back even more. If this story reminded you that standing up for what's right always wins, hit that like button and subscribe to Iron Brotherhood Stories for more real tales of courage, justice, and the unbreakable bonds of brotherhood. Tell us in the comments, would you have done what Sarah did? Have you ever stood up for someone who couldn't defend themselves? Drop your story below. Your words might inspire someone else to be brave when it matters most. Remember, bullies only win when good people stay silent. Be the person who stands up,